by owning our mistakes fully and graciously and without ever putting ourselves into it, like, I didn't mean to do that, or like, but just keeping it on them, keeping it on the wrong that you did to them, saying, oh God, I hear how hurt you are. My heart breaks that you feel that way. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You just kind of hear people out long enough, and you got to be sincere about it. And I felt horrible for this man. He was so helpful on the story. He was a great interview. And people will let you be fallible if you're also committed to being accountable.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm SoapyRao and I'm so happy that you are joining me for this episode. Um, the world is coming to just just anything, right? No, man. It's a very interesting end of the year. It's already what we're sitting closing in last week of November coming up soon, and it just feels like this year's gone by with war, and crazy other shit and climate change, and it just seems like there's been and the World Cup, which just got over last week. I don't know where I really want to go with this. It's just I just feel the highlights of this year, um, which a lot of people are trying to make into highlights, aren't really there. Eh, Um, because when we are constantly living with reels and TikTok and highlights already being there, what do you make a highlight of, right? Like, because when you have a slower, more kind of, I won't say dull existence, but it was, because I remember when this was not so crazy and so much of a whirlwind, there seemed to be a bit of like, a slower phase. It would build up and then again it would slow down. Like you would look forward to that. But it feels like that has gone from every few months you have that build up to every week or just every day. So when that's the kind of trend and the thing, the year itself doesn't have, we'd look for December because friends would come down or you would come back from holidays, come back for holidays, everyone would get together. Now just, I think the excitement of things have reduced because it's always constant excitement going on. And it's like, it's like coming 30 times a day. It just tires you out, right? As opposed to like, whoa, man, you got that magazine, can I borrow it? And like, whoa, that one weekend is, I don't know why, but it takes me back, those fond memories, those blonde memories. But yeah, no, I was talking to my wife about this, right? Like I'm trying to enjoy more and more of the things I can do because it's trying to appreciate my remaining sight, because I don't know if it's dropping that drastically, but it feels like I can't see the things that I could as clearly anymore. So this has nothing to do with the blonde or the fond memories, but a little bit. It's just a fun thing to experiment without being all heartbroken, going, oh, okay, now what if? So something like this morning, I woke up and I closed my eyes and tried walking around the house. Maybe in a couple of years, maybe never, maybe in 5 years, that might become a reality where I don't have to close my eyes, but it just thing. So it's fun to play around with what you have with, we play around with tools and with learning new skills and with going on Canva and trying to make how better thumbnails or whatever whatever floats your boat. So play around with your senses. Um, I'm not saying like, buy a wheelchair and thing, but it's more a mental thing. Like, what if I can't walk? What if I can't hear? What if I can't see? It just gives you a sense of reality, a sense of, okay, you know what? I'm not going to take everything for granted. It doesn't, or it could just be a fun thing. It could just be, hey, what am I going to do today? Am I going to watch a new show on Netflix? Am I just going to spend the entire day blindfolded? That might be a nice experiment. Or put, yeah, I mean, most of us put headphones and jam up the volume and put noise canceling. I think, yeah, but that's still music going in. But what if it's complete silence? It's just fucking scary. For me, yeah, that's really scary. Like when, you go underwater and your ears get blocked, like, oh, terrifying. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think I can ever do scuba diving because that's one thing which is too many things, which is I don't like the faceplate which covers my nose. I don't like that regulator which is in my mouth. I don't like being underwater for so long, and I don't like the ocean because of fucking Jaws. So all those things go to make scuba diving a very unappealing activity, and this has nothing to do with my eyes or lack of. It's just something I don't like doing. Yeah, there are people who enjoy that kind of activity. So, hats off to you, or masks off to you, whatever the term is. Ahoy, mate. Hmm. Strange things, dude. Because I don't really know what to say about anything else right now. Just looking forward to um, the next few weeks towards the end of the year and see what that brings and what's in store for us human beings. And yeah, again, if you want to reach out to me, say hello, and have a chat. I don't know if you want to have a chat, but anyway, you can write in at the SoapyRao, not the, just SoapyRao show at gmail.com. And I, would, of course, would appreciate it if you could share these episodes with people who are like minded, who, in fact, might, in fact, not be like minded. People who like listening to a podcast will help if you could give the show a rating on the podcast app you listen to your podcast on. If you can like and share to the YouTube video and channel and subscribe and share and do the lovely things that will help me get this out there to the world. But before any of that, let's talk about today's guest. Ronnie Polaneczky is joining me on today's episode to talk about the things that she does. Deliberate listening is something that she is focused on. She's a journalist, a reporter. She is now a practitioner of positive psychology. She's a keynote speaker speaking about listening. Now, of course, listening is something we all want to talk about. Oh, I'm a great listener. Are we? Because listening comes with judgment, it comes with reaction, it comes with the need for a person who's listening to win the argument. We're in this day where it's very combative, it's very judgmental, it's very winning and crushing the arguments that we're in. But what does it mean to listen with curiosity, with kindness, with compassion? Ronnie is here to talk to me about that today, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the conversation because it's a lot of stuff that I resonate with, and I'm sure you'll resonate with. It's experiences that Ronnie's been through, it's experiences that you and I have been through, and we speak about a lot of things that is going on in the world around us at this point. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Ronnie Polaneczky. Ronnie, thank you so much for joining me on the SoapyRao show. It's a pleasure having you here today.
Oh, thank you. It is so lovely to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we spoke, it was I think an episode in itself. So it's almost like a continuation of our last episode, which people didn't get a chance to listen to. Hey, it's too bad for them. I don't, I didn't record it, so it's not their fault. So
Did you record?
I
Did you
didn't,
record?
almost. I mean, I was in two minds going, I should just record this, but I didn't want to sort of start recording without you being prepared for it. And because some people are like, how could you record it without my knowing? I'm like, it shows
Yeah,
up as
yeah.
recording on your screen. And you can just say, hey, can you stop that? It's not like I'm doing anything cool.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so like if we make a point, we could say, well, this probably won't be clear to you all listeners, but oh well, you had to be here, but I guess
Yeah.
that's not a good way to do a podcast.
No, I think we can just go back and do the entire thing again because it was so much fun.
It was
Um,
so fun. It was so fun.
I'm so excited to talk to you today because there are so many things I want to cover, which we did kind of address, but I want to take it further in depth. Initially though, before we just started, I was talking to you about the the kind of the nature of this conversation, which I try to kind of do on the podcast, right? Which is this without an agenda, without this without this kind of need to impart a message, because in today's
Mm,
day, this format especially is encouraging a lot of people to give advice, right? They people, especially people who are listening, of course, demand it, so that there's a resulting uh, you know increase in podcasters doing this, rules to make money, or rules to be happy, or rules to be more successful, or rules to be more
yeah.
of a better partner. So I want to
Hmm.
understand if that's the nature of where demand and supply in this space are, especially in the format of podcast, which is more listening, is more long form. What is the what is determining that? Because when people want to be told how to get better as a husband in 3 steps, or how to find a partner or the love of their lives. And so when it comes to that nature of where we are, does that mean we are willing to listen to the ones who are successful in this, or is it just that it's a quick fix that people are looking for, and if that doesn't work, they just go on to the next quick fix?
Right, right. Um, I think it can be sort of a mix of both, but I think underneath it is a kind of fear. The fear is I'm doing something wrong. I will be judged. Please stop me before I do something wrong so that I'm not judged. Because once I'm judged, I might be kicked out of the tribe and then I don't belong. And our exact thing that drives our behavior as human beings are we know that we need to be connected. And so we can tend to think that anything that has the potential to cut us off from that is something to be terrified by, right? So, I mean, look, on the one hand, I could say, wow, I'd love to hear 3 things I can do, to be a better, a better wife to my husband when I'm tired or whatever. So those are some real kind of tips, and those are great. But I think part of what you're hitting on is that some podcasts, there's a real transactional nature to it. Like you're gonna come in, here's what we're gonna give you, you're gonna walk away with this.
Mm.
And so that can go in sort of thinking, okay, then that's the end result. So I'm listening for that end result. And in some ways, great. But I love the nature of what we're doing is we're saying, an hour and 20 minutes from now, I wonder what we will have talked about. And so there
Mm.
is this feeling of curiosity. There's a feeling of trust that whatever comes up, it's not going to harm me. I don't need to know ahead of time every single thing that's going to come up in order to be safe enough to have this conversation. So there's kind of a trust, and there's also really beautifully, I think, just a creativity beneath it, because it's 2 people listening very deeply to each other, hearing each other, um, and really understanding each other fully. And then you add curiosity on top of that, and who knows where it can go. It can get really great. It can get really great. So I do think that there's something in the culture right now that makes us afraid of something that looks that kind of wild. Like, oh boy, I don't know, what are the parameters? And it's like, where I hope that I will come from more in my own life as I get older and wiser is to trust that I have everything in me to handle whatever comes up, whatever feeling comes up. You say something, I get a little nervous. I'm like, okay, Ronnie, that won't kill you. That's your feeling.
Mhm.
How will can you authentically respond? And so that's why I think if you have a bedrock of understanding that listening is where I am more interested in hearing what you have to say than trying to judge it, that can create this culture of safety and mutual trust in the conversation. And within that, 2 people can be fully who they are. And that is so fun. Like it ends up being fun. It's really fun because it's not worried. It's not neurotic. It doesn't shut anything down. So it gives the conversation of something that is broadening and broadening and broadening. And within that really widening breadth, if that's not too redundant, there are all kinds of choices about what to focus on, what to let go of, what to kind of choose in the moment. And so I think that is why I love to have conversations like this, where there's a basic parameter, I guess, that says, let's meet and talk and tell me some stuff and we'll see where it's going to go.
Mm.
And if you go in with a full heart and curiosity and compassion and interest, it can go really fun places.
And I find that such uh, an amazing human potential, right? Because when we
Mhm.
are able to do that, commit to that idea of connecting with another human being, it really brings out the meaning of what it is to be a human being in the moment, connecting, passing on experiences. At the same time, we live in today's the narrative where words like authenticity and connection and meaningful connection and
Mhm.
words like slow living and safe zones and triggers are all existing where it's it is rewarded to use these words in conversation, but it
Mm.
seems like no one feels these concepts in conversation because, as you just pointed out, to be authentic you need to make mistakes, you need to show all sides of yourself which might not be accepted and which might not
Mm.
be the popular acceptance of what people should be. But it feels like authenticity is a certain person's version of authenticity, which is accepted by a certain popular sentiment or uh, a popular group within a cultural context. And just like that, when you say, I can say something which might hurt you or offend you, or which might over which might go against your sensibilities. But that is what conversation is, right? Not just saying the 10 things or the three things, the acceptable things, and then come out at the other end saying we had such an amazing conversation. But amazing because we
Mhm.
just ticked those boxes, because we said those right words, we signaled those things which need to be signaled and fulfilled for a conversation to be to pass the mark or pass the bar, which is as acceptable conversation. But when you're truly saying something, you take time, you might not know the answer, and at that moment you might even put a certain idea out which you believe in, but which might not agree with you, or you might not, that sentiment might be something which completely upsets you. But getting through that and explaining your view and my view and me listening to you and you listening to me is how we work out these things, which is my life comes with a set of experiences which made me who I am, your life did the same thing to you, and we are here today as two human beings, yes, but with
Mhm.
completely different sets of stories. But we're willing to exchange it and say, I'm willing to hear your story, you are willing to hear my story. And isn't that the exchange that makes us at the end of the conversation truly authentic, if that's something we want, but at the same time um, walk away feeling I've connected with another human being and I've come away with changes in my the way I view things, and also gaining other things that that person has experienced through their life, and that's something which is, it doesn't have to always be positive and happy and you walk away feeling inspired, but it could be you walk away feeling, man, that was an annoying thing, but you're thinking, you're listening, and I think that's something we don't have, even though the words that we use to describe it are all up there. But I don't think the feeling, which is a lot of discomfort when you have these things, people don't want to feel
Yeah,
that.
right. It's tricky. It's tricky, isn't it?
Mm,
I think what maybe we're both touching upon is that what is necessary in a conversation is to presume the other, that each of you has goodwill. We both want to presume, I'm going to presume that you are coming in goodwill, in good faith. And I would like you to presume that about me as well.
mm-hmm,
And that this is where really closely listening, suspending judgment, so that you can really hear what your judgments may be keeping you from hearing, will earn
mm,
you all kinds of goodwill. And then especially if you're sort of paraphrasing it back and saying, it sounds to me like what you're saying is A, B, and C. Did I get that right? And when people hear you say, did I get that right? They know that you're not listening to create a counter argument or to correct them. They know that you're listening because you want to understand. And once that, especially in the beginning of a conversation, once that happens, it really does, I have found, lay the groundwork for so much of what comes next.
mm-hmm,
And if you really, just say you're having a difficult conversation and with somebody who, you maybe disagree fundamentally with about a certain thing, call it politics, think of any number of our really sort of combative differences on different issues.
mm-hmm,
If you listen with compassionate curiosity, because you don't want to forget the person in front of you you're in a relationship with. So you want to have respect and care for the relationship. And if I can remember that going into a conversation, I can think, all right, so how will I think? No, how will I listen and choose my words so that I'm protecting this precious thing called our relationship, protecting it and caring for it, you know? So, and that doesn't mean that you hold back, but there's a way to speak. There's a way to say, you know, I mean, it's so funny. I'm going to digress for just a second and give an example. I found this essay I wrote, oh my gosh, 35 years ago. It was on Father's Day and it was for my dad. And he and I disagreed until the day he died about a woman's right to choose and pro-choice stuff. And so I had to call and tell him that I wouldn't see him on his birthday because I was going to Washington, D.C. to march for reproductive rights. And boy, I thought this is going to feel like a slap in the face. I'm choosing this issue that he detests over acknowledging his birth, right? Now we always had a good relationship. We're both, he's now passed, but we were both very opinionated. And what I noticed at that point, I was about, I don't know, maybe 30, 28, 30. I told him, and something had changed between us. And I think the conversation ended up being beautiful, that left us both in tears. And the tears were that one of us, and I even wrote this, I couldn't remember who, said, maybe you have a point on this thing. Somebody was gracious enough to say, maybe you have a point. And the other was gracious enough to then extend that back to them. And suddenly we were having a conversation where it was clear we both disagreed entirely with each other, but we were so curious and interested about why the person felt that way. And I discovered just these deeper parts of my dad that he never shared. And it wasn't because he withheld them. It was just because he never thought to share them, you know, and he heard different parts of me. And, you know, I'm going to get choked up thinking about it now, but by the time we hung up, he just said, I love you so much. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. And I said, thank you for all you've ever done for me and for us. And we left seeing each other almost as fully whole in and of themselves. It wasn't required for both of us to have the same brains and the same opinions. But we saw each other as whole. And we loved that the other one wanted to see us that way. And we both left feeling heard and feeling loved and feeling like we would not be cut off from each other just because we disagreed on something that each of us found fundamentally important. So you have to, I think with conversations, if you do begin presuming goodwill, even with somebody who, say, you don't have a pre-existing relationship, like I did with my dad, just go in thinking, I'm going to presume goodwill here. And if you react to them as though you presume it, even if it's not said, you can feel that the tenor of the conversation has opened up a little bit. It's gotten less judgy and more like we are meeting on, say, shared ground here to sort something out. Let me keep presuming the best of you. I hope you will keep presuming the best of me. And let's see what we can do with that. And you might begin the conversation thinking, this is exactly what I know we have to get to. You have an endpoint in mind, but that's only when the conversation is between you and yourself in your head, or you and the person you presume them to be, and you've worked that all out. The actual experience is where you both bring something much bigger. And, you know, conversation between two people becomes more than the sum of just the two people. There could be this third entity born, and oftentimes that entity is the relationship, right? So it's, if I can keep reminding myself, this is fun. This is why we're here on this earth, I believe. We need each other. We can be united so much more often than we're divided, but it is a choice. It's a choice. And sometimes and I'll cop to this myself. Sometimes I will go with the loudest voices in the room because I want to belong to them, not all the time. And it could be about anything. It could even be about watching a football game, and I'm like, they look like they're having more fun. I think I'll go be on their side. It could be that, but it does become a choice. That's why, when I do my speaking about listening, I call it how to be a more deliberate listener. So there's different ways of listening that we can choose on purpose. And there's sometimes I've had conversation and only in retrospect, I go, wow, that was really great. I was a great listener, but I didn't know how to deconstruct it so that I could remember in the future that really good, beautiful, deep listening doesn't have to be a thing that happens coincidentally. You can actually choose it. So that's a really long answer to your question.
Yeah, but it's packed with so many things that are essential, right? Like from a father-daughter relationship to
Sure.
um, all of us have this kind of relationship when there is certain past conditioning or certain things that you feel you are responsible to your parent for, and
Hmm.
you either completely echo them or you don't even talk to them because you develop your a sense of ideology to just to rival them, to irritate them, or to become their enemy. And there's so many families that are split like that. But hearing what
Hmm.
your father and you did, I think it takes a lot of, as you said, the gracious aspect to that, which I find lacking in today's day and age, where people are combative, people are
Hmm.
looking to react. So when they listen, it's almost like not even a debate, but they're looking at like an information war. How much you
Yeah.
know versus how much I know. And
Hmm.
by not coming out of this conversation on top, or
Hmm.
not looking like I've owned this conversation, it's a sign of weakness. And how can I be
Uh-huh.
weak in an age where there's an information overload? And as a result, you have people who aren't, I'm not saying experts are important, but when it comes to things like mental health and depression and clinical situations where people are trained to help, then you have now someone who's just been through something, having, the opportunity to tell people how to live their life if they're going through depression, and without any accountability. I'm just going on an example of what people are
Hmm.
doing.
Sure.
Or someone who's never written a book, or or directed a movie, having the absolute certainty with which they enter an argument, and the power of going online and destroying the reputation of the director or the actor. Which,
Hmm.
of course, opinions are opinions, but my point is there is the need for gracious conversation is no longer a requirement between humans, because you can hide
Mm.
behind virtual profiles. You can,
Wow. Yeah.
and it's scary in some way, because if, and as you said, walking away as two human beings at the end of that with phone call, it gives you the right to live your life with your entire, in its entirety, right? With all the mistakes, all the good things, all the right decisions, all the things that worked out, the things that didn't work out. And similarly for your dad, the time when you grew up and he grew up were different, but you're giving recognition to the life that he lived, the life that you live, and what it
Mhm.
took you down, which path. But I feel, we again, kind of this goes back to the first thing I asked you or mentioned, with the right words, the right concepts to think. It's, if we're not giving people a chance to make their point, because
Mhm.
it doesn't suit an agenda, it doesn't suit a certain narrative, then aren't we going to deny a chance for people to live their lives, because they are quote unquote violating the way life should be lived according to a certain number of people? And this whole listening thing, I think is happening more to react, saying, I will not listen to deliberately, as you put it, but I will listen because it's the points I need to make my counter argument. And it
Right.
only goes
Right.
so far, right? It's kind of,
Mhm.
it's a very limited loop, which doesn't
Yeah.
allow for either person to grow. It's one person crushing the other.
Right. one person crushing the other. That is such a good way to put it. It depends. It depends a lot on the context, right? I mean, if you're someone talking to a boss who has, like, I think if there's a power dynamic, perceived or otherwise, that can really influence both how we listen and whether we feel listened to. So, I think different factors come into it, but I think power has more of an impact than we think. And sometimes if people feel powerless, they are going to use whatever vehicle of power they could have access to take some of that power back, And interestingly, what happens in the brain is that when people perceive that they have power over someone, let's just say that power over someone, it could impede their ability to really listen to the person who they have power over, because they're not perceived as a threat. So we are always listening. I mean, humans, our brains developed to keep us safe all the time. Our brains have not caught up with where we are at now socially and where we are. I mean, I do not have tigers at the door trying to get in. Some places in the world, of course, obviously that still exists, but our our brains are still very primitive in that way. So I think some of our constructs right now in society are set up to make us think that we are under constant threat. We're under constant threat. We look at what our politicians want you to think, that without them, you are going to die. People in abusive relationships will say, if I'm not in your life, you will, it's going to be bad.
What you were saying makes a lot of sense, and I'll just get
Does
back to
it?
that point. Yeah, no, I think it is, right, because we are at a time, I suppose, which is the safest we've been. Of course, I'm not talking about the blanket population, right? There are a lot of people, there's a lot of extremes, there's a lot of disparity. I get it, but
Sure.
for the most part, as you said, we don't have tigers knocking on the door. I mean, I don't know if they knock, but we don't have tigers at the door.
They're very polite tigers.
Very polite. Yeah. Just one claw, with manicured claw. No, but it is. There is this sense of dread.
Dread and threat. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Right.
Yes.
Dread, threat, and that because there's dread and threat, I better have power. I better find power and execute it wherever I can. And that feeling is really exacerbated on different forms, especially of social media, because that's where you can just show, like, you can one up people with the touch of a button, and suddenly you have power. But
so that would be the tiger you were talking about, which is at your door thousands of years back. Now it's that threat level, which is no longer the tiger and such a large beast that only kills for food, but it is a fellow, your classmate or your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend or your someone who's got that threat and the ability and the willingness to execute it in less than a second and over within a minute. And that's just continuous bombardment of threats, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so then, there's this fear of being dominated. Who gets to dominate? I think that what I have seen, I knew the world before social media, and I know it now. And it has nurtured the very worst parts of, say, who we were when we were adolescents. Like, how often when you're 12 years old, you're a teenager, something happens, it's the end of the world. And if you have a good parent, they're like, calm down. This is not all about you. Take a deep breath. You're going to have to go talk to this person, like somebody who would rein you in so that you could be, and while your brain is just catching up, your brain is catching up. And as your brain is maturing. So social media is like pulling all of us back to adolescence, where all we're doing is reacting. And we're reacting so that we can say, you're not the boss of me. I mean, like when I was growing up, right? If somebody, I would tell my siblings, they would try to tell me what to do. I'm like, you're not the boss of me. I mean, it's so adolescent. Now we have full grown ass adults acting in ways that are saying, you're not the boss of me. And I'm thinking, you're the boss of you, so stop acting like someone else is, so it rewards that. Our
And you know,
headlines do.
as a
And
parent would scold me, or those words can't even be said. It's sacrilege, right? Saying scold and yell at, because it's like, my God, your parent yelled at you. And no,
yeah,
you would, when you were acting stupid, or you would throw this tantrum because they're not talking to me in school. They're like, you know what?
yeah,
It's You'll find new friends, or they'll say something like,
yeah,
it's okay. They maybe
right.
they're immature, they're kids, they're fools. So they use these words. Maybe we're too
Yes,
sensitive to hear those words now. But you wake up the next morning going, you know what? It's not the end of the world, man. I'll go to school and come back. But now, what do those kids do when they hear that? They attack the parents are the enemy. They go back to those friends saying, my parents, I'm the victim of my parents. And they form these
yeah.
support groups, and they're celebrated online going, your parents hate you. You know, how your parents are out to control your life. Like, how bad is that? And that message, and no longer is the break from the end of the school day to the next day. It's continued. It is amplified, because that kid who left school with that thought in his or her head, or whichever
Mhm,
gender they are now, is
mhm.
now 100 times exposed to the same thing, and they're being pushed into a corner. It seems like the world is caving in, and they can't trust the people who are supposed to be their shepherds, who are their parents.
Well, I mean, can that happen? Absolutely. Absolutely. I also think that it's on parents to understand that adolescence now looks 100 times different than it did when we were
Mm,
younger. And so that is where I think your kid comes home from school and you say, let's all put away our phones. How are you?
yeah,
What's going on? In that space, kids, this, kids know. Kids are so much smarter than we think. And they may get, there's no substitute for just talking to your kid and really
yeah,
listening and making the time. And you can set ground rules. And if they freak out, you can say, look, I know you're freaked out. One day you'll understand, but I can't wait for that day. So here's what we're going to do. And there will be a consequence if it doesn't happen. Know that I love you. Please trust me. And if you don't, I am grown up enough to handle it. Like,
yeah,
just, you can do that. You can do it. So I think there's no substitute for just acknowledging the relationship and then caring for it. And as a parent, we have to care for it. And when you're an adolescent and you're just saying, no one understands me, the world is horrible, horrible. In an ideal world, you have a parent who likes it, who is able to be the other half of your brain and go, okay, but is that really true 100% of the time? Okay, but think of the time when it did go well. Okay, like, so you have a parent who can balance out that stuff until eventually you get older, bigger, your brain matures somewhere around the age of 90 or whatever the heck it is these days. And so those other parts of your brain will have developed as well. I
yeah,
think social media speeds a lot of it up. I think it makes it a lot more difficult for parents. And I think that doesn't relieve us as parents of doing the hard work, which is new. Like, it's a new form of hard work. Like, hell, how do we do this now? I don't know, but I guess it's on you to figure this out because you're the parent.
yeah,
And so go get some books, go talk with your friends, go consult with people who you think may be able to give you some good counsel about how to approach things. I mean, I think in our last conversation, the thing that I used to do with my kid, she's now 27, but it earned me a lot of grace. When she was like, say, 5 years old, just say we're having dinner and I have a knife and I'm cutting some meat. And she's like, no, 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 I can do it myself. And she's really, and she's angry because she's trying to be a big girl. And when I said to her, okay, thanks for telling me that. You know, when you were 4, I had to do this for you. And I knew that at 4 years old, this is what you needed. I don't know what you need right now at 5. So I don't know how to be the mother of a 5-year-old, but I'm learning. So you're going to have to calm it down and we're going to learn together. And then I did that for the next 10 years. Something would come up and she would just chafe and be like, no, but because she had grown, her ability and her need for greater independence had expanded. I didn't know what it was until she let me know loud and clear, the way teenagers do. And I would
mm,
say to her, look, you know what I'm going to say? I know how to be the parent of a 15-year-old because I've had a whole year to learn. Now you're 16. It sounds like things have changed. Put down your phone and we're going to talk. Tell
yeah,
me what it is. What's it like to be 16? Let me tell you, let me listen. Let me listen.
Mm.
And, you do that enough times over time with your kids, you
Mm.
you build in a lot of grace, you build in a
Mm.
lot of trust. And they also see that, okay, mom and dad clearly do have a lot of wisdom they have more than me, but
And
they're
they make
willing
time
to,
for me.
and they make time for me, and they're
Yeah.
willing to say when they get it wrong. So they see that apologizing and owning your shit
Mm.
is possible. And okay, if mom and dad can do it, okay. Like, you don't want them to see you as infallible. You want them to see you as trustworthy. And
Yeah.
I think, and you have to earn that. But don't we all have to earn it in all of our relationships?
We
I
do, and
mean,
I think that's the beautiful thing of growing up, right? We think of growing up as these five, six measures that we are judged by, which is, of course, all outward, which is all these things like money and investment and success and uh, financial worth or whatever it may be, your standing in society. But what about these things, as you said, this ability to recognize that you don't know, or this ability to admit that you are learning with your child, and to admit to your child, who people are like, are you crazy? No, you can't admit weakness to your child, or they call it weakness, or your lack of not knowing. You should tell
yeah.
your child everything. You should put up this front that I know everything. And but all these things, the problem I see it as is that it's a generation of insecure people raising a generation of insecure people, and breeding insecurity into the next generation because they don't know. So instead of this child coming home who's like, no one's talking to me, and the mother or the father saying, it's okay, I'll sit you down,
Yeah.
or maybe talk to them, they're like, are you, no one's talking to you, no one's talking to me on Facebook. It's just,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
this, it's ridiculous. I don't
Uh-huh.
point fingers at the kids, but
Yeah.
it clearly goes to show that these tools like social media, Facebook, whatever you think, it's not just it sadly has got the youngest hooked because they've been exposed to it from a much younger age. But
Uh-huh.
why is it that so many people in their 50s and 60s are hooked to these WhatsApp groups? If they're thrown out by the admin, they feel like crap, or they have to be a part of this forwarding epidemic where they have to keep forwarding shit to each other, or they have to be a part of these movements, as you see, right? Like the ice bucket challenge, or jumping the box challenge, or whatever challenge is on thing, or having these TikTok reels where they have to dance like someone to get attention, to do all these things, because clearly they have some baggage which they don't want to face, and that
Well,
insecurity
I'm
is,
gonna
yeah.
I'm
Go
gonna
on.
push back a little bit. I
Yeah.
want to push back on you here a little bit. Um, it sounds like you're making judgments about a big swath of people without actually knowing individually why someone does it.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I didn't do the ice bucket challenge. Somebody sent it to me, and I'm like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't want to.
Yeah.
They had so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
They met other people. They connected with people they never would have connected with.
Yeah.
They found out about something that they loved. Um, I think the question should always be, is this helping you or hurting you?
Yeah.
If if getting all upset because something you forwarded isn't liked, if that's getting you worked up, so maybe you pause and go, why would that be? And then maybe you talk to someone who will really listen while you figure that out. If doing an ice bucket thing makes you so happy and just tickles you and
Yeah.
delights you, have at it. I think
Yeah.
the question is, where's the harm? Is there harm,
Yeah.
and what is it? And
Now, the
then
point I was
it's
trying to make with that, I totally
yeah,
agree with you. If throwing ice down you, I didn't do it as a challenge, but we used to do that as kids, right? Put ice down each other's back, like in some sort of
yeah,
fun
right,
way.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
But no, I think what I was trying to get without making blanket statements is this
yeah.
trend where it's it is a human thing, right? I mean, I'm not saying by any means I've looked at all the skeletons in my closet and made peace with all of them. Of course, it's a growing thing, and in many cases, you spend your entire life doing it, and that's the beauty of it, right? You pick up some new fears, you let go of some old ones, you have some new
Yeah.
insecurities, some new things which are making you think, and that's your journey, and that's your thing. Some people figure out what gets them going much young at a much younger age. Some people take a lot more, and that's beautiful. That's how each of us are different. What
Mhm.
I was specifically trying to understand and also refer to was this the way these tools and the way we are expected to communicate is is kind of almost amplifying that aspect of us, just like how you said earlier that it is playing to a certain side of humanity which
Mhm,
a lot of us would be happy growing past, but it's almost
mhm.
like anchoring us back there. And I'm not saying
Right.
there's nothing wrong with taking up a challenge or
Mhm.
taking up a nice dance with which has gone viral on TikTok and doing
Yeah,
it with
yeah,
your family. Nothing wrong with that. But when the motivation behind it comes from a place of insecurity or lack of self-worth, I'm not
right.
judging the person, but I'm just saying it's really bad
Yeah.
um,
Mhm,
for their own way they look at themselves, because it all depends on the validation they get for it.
mhm. Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. I do. I hear it. And wait, there was one thing you just said. Oh, about it anchoring us. I think now social media, the internet has so connected us that we really are almost like a global sensibility.
Hmm.
And then there's a power within that. It's like, okay, and in a thing called a global sensibility, what part of that is going to dominate? Is it going to
Mm.
be this adolescent brain? Is it
Yeah,
going to be an altruistic brain? Is
yeah,
it going to be a wise brain? And usually, like in the course of a human life, we all go, hopefully, we all evolve through that. You know, we're a child, then we're an adolescent, then we get some experience and we screw things up and come back again in our 20s and 30s and stuff. So we're allowed, so we progress along the whole human continuum. And I think when our communities are tiny and small, we sort of do that without having to say, is this a right or wrong thing? It just is what it is for each person. With now that we're sort of globally connected, it's almost like there's not the space for it to be as complex and nuanced and individual and evolutionary per person. It's like what loudest scream is going to get the attention, which
mm,
loudest scream, which loudest viewpoint is going to have the power. And this is that power thing again. People, it's like it can feel really good to be dominant and to have power. It means that I don't need to worry about my survival because I'm the big cheese, man. I'm in charge. So I think this is where we can reassert the truth that we have choice. We have choice about who to listen to. We have choice about what we say. And if we are going to participate in this big global sensibility, this big global conversation, if we do it with compassion, kindness, and curiosity, that can change our experience of it. It can certainly change others' experience of how they see us. Um, and with, I think what concerns me is that sometimes, you know, I think we do have to be careful in how we comport ourselves in this big global thing. Careful meaning there's a lot of people listening. We don't know who's listening.
yeah.
But if we always err on the side of kindness, curiosity, compassion, it doesn't mean that we're not true or honest. It means that we're bringing additional ways of looking for truth through kindness, compassion, curiosity.
Yeah.
Then I think that's almost like the way that we can remain civil in this global community that we all participate in. And I do think if you do that and someone really comes after you anyway, it is really okay to say, you know what, I think that I don't, I don't like, I may try and say, it sounds like what I said upset you. Did I get that right? um, can you tell me more about that, etc.? Like you can even use that as a way to begin a new conversation if you choose to,
If you
if you
choose to.
choose to. My time is limited on this earth for sure, but even day to day, my time is limited. And I realize I could be in those kind of conversations all the time with people. But those could be sort of depleting for me. So I want to choose wisely the people I want around me. I don't want people who are carbon copies of me, but certainly I really appreciate people who aim to have the same sensibility of curiosity, compassion, um, God forbid, some humor and some affection for this ridiculous state we're in called being human and being alive. I mean, there's very little affection for it. It's like we're supposed to detest ourselves for being human, for being fallible. Why?
Yeah.
Why? That's ridiculous, Like
And
I'm
you know,
five
that's
foot
such a
four. It's like blaming myself for being 5'4". It just is.
and you know that's such a weird thing about the humor aspect of it, right? Um, when I was growing up, there were jokes about height and about weight, about
Hmm.
someone having crooked teeth, and
Yeah.
about even some jokes about my eyes, and um, various things would fly. And now, of course, we live in a time where nothing flies. Um, at the same time, 35 years back, you wrote an essay about the right to reproduce, and 35 years later, that right's been taken away. So I'm just
Yeah.
not contrasting the two, but putting the two next to each other and going, what does it show about us as a society, as a group, and of course, America being a country which a lot of others look to when it comes to some of these progressive laws and rights to people, when it comes to whether it's humor or abortion rights.
Hmm.
You have a country which is now stripped women of abortion rights, yet jokes which are said by certain people are also being punished. So what is that
Hmm.
indicative of, right? Because I get it, it hurts when
Yeah.
this thing, but just because someone makes joke, and this is what gets me, right? If a joke is funny, laugh, right? Now if it's hurtful because there's no joke there, but it's just an insult, I think
Hmm.
you can tell the difference between an insult and a joke. But
Hmm.
now, sadly, you can't. You can't even have that conversation because, sometimes you get carried away in humor, right? You say something, someone else comes back at you, you go, and that's how humor grows. And the conversation sometimes goes a little beyond. And if you're close enough, you're like, okay, you know what, I went too far. Screw it, let's just pull it back. But you can't even get there now because immediately it's like, oh, you're typecast into this kind of person. You're a bigot. You don't like this. You don't like gay people. You don't like short people. It's everything's thrown at you, and the book and the kitchen sink is thrown at you if you make one thing statement which was funny but inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
find that, yeah, I just find that extremely unforgiving because
I think you put your finger on something here. I do think that what this global connection has done is it's exposed us. We have all been exposed to people who are so different from us. And we think, well, why can't they just have a sense of humor? I made this joke, I was being funny. If I don't know what their life is like, and it's actually not funny at all, in fact, it just made it worse, um, and they're upset, I think I'd like to know that.
yeah,
And if I know that and I want to keep making the jokes anyway, well, look, we all have a right to do that, but I certainly would not expect that they would suddenly become someone who appreciates my jokes. It's like I always say, you can make whatever joke you want, but you don't get to control the impact. So,
absolutely. No, I did a
so,
thing
so,
once
so you could
where,
say,
yeah, you're right. Just about what you're saying. I did a show for a small group during the lockdown, and one of the ladies in the audience was not responding to my questions, and I was talking about being but being married in the lockdown, and every time I asked her a question, she wouldn't respond, and someone later told me she lost her husband recently, and I didn't
oh,
know this, right? And it wasn't like I was trying to provoke her, but if she had
yeah,
told me I lost my husband and I went after her, that's now my decision and her decision to react.
right,
But the sad
right.
part now is that everyone will pounce on you. The thing is that I'm not saying I'm going to do it, and I didn't do it. I didn't even know. But
Mhm,
I'm just giving in a comedic environment or anything. Like
mhm,
when you talk to someone, if I talk to you and you have some insecurity which I don't know about, but you
mhm,
have the right to say, "Hey, I didn't like that. I'm a little sensitive about thing."
mhm,
See, I don't even think there's scope for that conversation. And so what
mhm,
you would do if you're okay, you're like you just walk away. But now there's the chance to walk away. It's the where it's between you and me is no longer there because there is automatically the good side and the bad side, and
mhm,
everyone
mhm.
just piles on to the sides. I want you to talk about that, the great reckoning, and what that actually looks like, because
Yeah.
a lot of these trends seem to filter down into different countries because right now, if you look at what happened in Iran with the moral police and that entire the rioting, and then you look at the
Mhm,
January 6th attacks in the U.S., which was an assault on the Constitution, which a lot of
mhm,
people don't believe, or
mhm,
there was these instances in India where there are farmers being lynched, or and there were issues of. So I'm saying there's such severe um, real problems to those people involved in those. But at the same
mhm.
time, it's a human thing. But I cannot put myself in any context because I have my own thing. So, yeah, so context is something which is now no longer, I don't know if it's relevant, but I think it's no longer considered when people are talking, because a person sitting in Bangalore like me can easily read up on, say, what happened with Trump and comment on it like I know it and say these jokes are not acceptable because
Mhm.
and you can sit here and say, what's happening in India. I'm just trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I think here in the States, we are still in the middle of a great reckoning. A lot of people who were marginalized and dehumanized for decades, for their whole lives, have awoken and said, "Oh, wait, that's wrong. I I am a human. I should not be dehumanized because I am gay or lesbian or trans. Or why does anyone care? I am tired of being dehumanized." People used to sort of quietly not even accept the dehumanization, but it
Mm,
sure wasn't safe to own up to it. And so, and you've got people who have, say, disabilities, and they're like, I am more than my disability. Don't even call me don't call me a disabled person anymore. I'm a person. My personhood is not disabled. I've got legs that don't work, or I've got a hearing impairment.
yeah.
That's the thing there. And those people are discovering their voice, their absolute right to be seen, heard, and known fully, to not have their quote shortcoming, the thing that people use to dehumanize them, held against them in ways that will lessen their chances for employment, in ways that will lessen their ability to walk down the street unassaulted, who will say say you cannot force me out of this job just because of the thing that you don't like about me. So it's people saying, who gave you the power to tell me that the authentic wholeness of who I am is not whole, right? So, and they're seeing, and this is true, that there has been a lot of money to be made over controlling certain people. Our politics now, our politics are so awful. We are getting rid of affirmative action because people say, well, that's just not fair. And it's like, no, we are trying to even out a playing field that has been like this
Hmm.
for generations. Um, you're not going to like what it looks like for a while, because it could be that sort of the automatic leg up that you just thought was what it is to be alive was actually a big advantage. And so we're going to try to mitigate that. Sometimes the efforts to mitigate can be overkill, for sure. They don't go far enough, or they go too far. I get
Yeah.
it. But it certainly is coming from an effort to recognize that people have been dehumanized for just being who they are. One of my friends is Black, and she said, I've been dehumanized because of the way my hair grows out of my head. And it's true. It's true. And so we're still in the midst of all of this. We're still in the midst of it. And so it's like the pendulum was over here. And then what social media and this global interconnection has done is it has slammed it like
Hmm.
way over here. And we're like, well, that's too much. It's like, okay, well, so how much is enough? Like if my life's been perfectly fine with it over here, I'm like, well, when's it get back to here again?
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, why don't you was it really there? Or were you, as Molly Ivins said, American politician about George Bush Jr. She said he was born on third base and thinks he hit a home run. So I think there has been this big push to say,
Right.
were you born on third base or did you hit a home run? Right. And to recognize that. So I think all of the stuff that we are saying, people get so offended so easily. In some ways, I just want to cut people slack for venting and screaming out this pain or whatever they have felt forced to hold inside, like they don't have a right to be and to exist. So we have sown a lot of seeds of this. And now the lid is off the pot. And we're like, well, we liked it better. Well, so I'm not going to say I have the answers. I'm not going to say that sometimes things don't go too far. It is
it
just
is a reaction to the
yes,
reaction to the repression. Yeah. You
I
see
think
that
so.
here
Yeah,
with the caste system and the years of abuse that inflicted on people. And
absolutely.
and that's not similar in to the race thing, but it is an oppressive system which
Mhm.
dehumanized people. But yeah,
Yeah.
and that is something which one should, and I think one
Mhm.
recognizes, is the,
Mhm.
the swing when it goes from one extreme to the other. It does um,
Oh, it's
feel severe.
disorienting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
disorienting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems
Yeah.
like a lot
It's
of noise,
disorienting.
but I want to get to something because you spent many years in as a journalist,
Mhm.
reporting, covering pieces, and writing pieces on different things. And in this space, and you did, of course, you know, work as a journalist in different fields, but in this idea of the truth,
Yeah.
see, because you do tell a story, and it's always shaded with opinions, but the
Mhm.
facts were always there.
Right.
But with this new window opening up, that the truth can also be different for different people.
Mhm.
That's a bit
Mhm.
scary to me. That
Well, you're right. It's like and I think I think for people who are incurious or threatened, um, saying that, I mean, look, there's the facts and there's my opinions about the facts, but I don't want to have opinions about whether something is a fact, right?
mm,
And so I think that is where things have gotten a little wacky. And this is also where disinformation, like there's huge disinformation campaigns that are out there so that people could say, no, here's the real facts, here's the other facts. It's
yeah,
like, so facts are, I mean, ideally we would know like facts are facts. It's either raining or it's not raining, and
yeah,
then there's different shades and different nuances, right? So for a good 20 of the 23 years that I was with the Philadelphia Daily News and Inquirer, I was a columnist. So I wrote commentary. And I was very clear that there were the facts. And then I would say, here's what I think about them.
yeah,
And the thing that helped me a lot was that I felt very unapologetic about, like, I found that my opinions often skewed toward um, the powerless being, if powerless people were being abused or ignored, it got my back up. And I would use my column as a way to sort of level that power playing field,
mm,
to amplify a voice that powerful people should have been listening to and they were not. And those people, sometimes people would say, oh, I love your column, you give voice to the voiceless. And I would always feel like that's so I mean, number one, thank you. I mean, I understand what you're saying, like, and I appreciate that. But I would always want to say they've had voices and they've been screaming.
yeah,
And what the media could do, what I could do is I could amplify that voice, but they have it. They
yeah,
have it. And the shame on us is, why aren't we listening?
yeah,
Why weren't we listening? Whenever people would call or reach out, email, whatever, to me and ask if I could write about something that was going on that they were upset about. And that was mostly what people called.
mm,
They were upset about something. I would really, really listen. And I would say no a lot of the times, just because I also thought I also have a responsibility to readers. And I think that I don't think this is going to be like a compelling enough thing to make
Yeah.
to sort of fit the parameters of what the column was. And oftentimes with them, I would say, I don't think this is going to work for the column. However, that doesn't mean I think you're wrong. And it doesn't mean that I don't think you've not been wrong.
Mm.
Sounds like maybe you need a lawyer. And then I would give them referrals. I said, here's, sort of a public interest law center that could maybe be able to help you, whatever. But 9 times out of 10, when people would pick up the phone and call a journalist, it's because they were on their last nerve. Somebody who should have listened didn't. And now shit was hitting the fan.
Right.
Things were really going bad. And I used to think, wow, these people, usually the people who were doing the wronging, I'm like, they don't notice that they're wrong until something goes horribly wrong. And then it's like, oh boy, and I would feel bad. I would like pick up the phone to call them and say, I'm going to write a column about such and such. I'd like to hear your side of the story. Can you tell me whatever? And oftentimes I thought, I'm about to give this person a really bad day because it's going to be horrible for them to feel called out on a thing they should have done. And I would try to do it with fairness. When I look back, I wish that I'd had a little less kind of attitude with some of it. Like there's sometimes I reveled in that hour, that leverage I had there. But mostly people want, and again, this is just going to bring us back full circle. We want to feel like we have been listened to. People need to be heard and known. And then that will help them feel like they're connected and they belong. Listening on purpose in a couple ways that create the conditions for that to happen is the antidote for, I'd say, 90% of what ails us. The thing that scares me right now is that where our politics are these days is that we have people who just don't even, if they do believe that, they don't care because there's nothing in it for them. They want to get reelected. There'll be more money. There'll be more power. They'll make more connections. They'll take they'll take payoffs for certain contracts. God knows what it's going to be. So, but people just, so if you can listen and then graciously listen and then apologize if you get it wrong and say, I would, as a columnist, or sometimes like I would get something wrong, or as a reporter, I'd mess something up, didn't know I messed it up, or I thought I understood and I didn't. And I didn't clarify it with them when I wrote the thing. Somebody would call and say, I was really upset with how that turned out. You didn't even say A, B, or C. And now some other shitty thing has happened. And I would just listen. I would feel myself turn totally red, like, oh my God, how did I get that wrong? And then often I would say, number one, I am so sorry that happened. I'm so sorry I did it. I didn't know. I'm really glad you called. How can I make this better? What would help you to make this better? In one case, it was very simple. This guy, he was a visiting professor at the University of Pennsylvania, big, Ivy League university here in the States. And I identified him as a professor, not a visiting professor. In my head, I'm like, professor's a professor, right? And he was so upset when he came out because it got him, and the people who had brought him in to be a visiting professor thought he was pawning himself off as some kind of full tenured whatever. He was ready to call a lawyer. And he called up, and I think a lawyer called and said, I'm reaching out on behalf of Professor so-and-so. And I was like, oh, that guy was great. What's up? And then it was this thing that I got wrong. And I said, oh my God. He said, so, he's looking into his legal rights to, you could show reckless disregard for the truth. Like I was just a sloppy reporter or whatever. That would have escalated everything. And I said, can I just speak with him? I said, I am so sorry that happened. I'm mortified. Can I speak with him? And I had his number. I called him up and I said, look, I just heard from your lawyer. I'm so sorry. It never even occurred to me that not distinguishing between visiting and professor would have created all that trouble for you. He said, I feel embarrassed. I feel like a fraud and an imposter. People are looking at me like I said, oh my God, no. I said, tell me who to call. Who do I call? because you didn't, right? And I was so falling over myself
Yeah.
to do this. And I could hear him calming down as I said all this, because I think he thought he'd have to fight for his right
Yeah.
to have possession of the facts, right? And I said, so anyway, I can't remember everything, but the person, like the dean or whatever, who had brought him in, I said, give me his number. And I was in touch with the dean, and I said, this is all on me. Please don't punish him. He's awesome. In fact, you should hire him. And then I said, and we will put a correction in, the paper, because back then it was kind of before the internet, but, or whatever it is, we're going to put a correction and say, due to an error made by Ronnie, this was misrepresented. We deeply regret the error. We thank Professor so-and-so for graciously pointing out the error.
Nice.
And it worked. And it's not like I was looking for it to, like, look, I mean, I didn't want us to be sued, but I also knew that my only defense was I didn't know. And now that I know, I should have checked that. Oh boy, I'm not going to do that one again, So by owning our mistakes fully and graciously and without ever putting ourselves into it, like, I didn't mean to do that, or like, but just keeping it on them, keeping it on the wrong that you did to them, saying, oh God, I hear how hurt you are. My heart breaks that you feel that way. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You just kind of hear people out long enough, and you got to be sincere about it. And I felt horrible for this man. He was so helpful on the story. He was a great interview. And so I think if people are willing to be vulnerable enough to say, man, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I certainly have seen that, like on enough Twitter feeds, somebody gets something wrong, somebody else will come back really pretty snippy and say,
Yeah.
wow, if you did a little bit of research, you would have found blah, blah, blah. They say, wow, never thought I got that wrong. Thanks for pointing that out. And then the guy might continue and go, yeah, well, you shouldn't have had it pointed out. And then they could say, thank you so much. And then you can see other people weighing in and going, cut the guy a break. He apologized, right? So like you can turn the tide so that people are allowed to be fallible. And people will let you be fallible if you're also committed to being accountable.
Nicely said. No, I think these are such important things because it's only going to get more crowded, more noisy. The tools are going to get more prolific. They're going to be more a part of our lives. The distinction between reality, virtual reality, on and offline is getting less. And I think these are messages and stories and things that we can kind of apply to to ourselves, right? When we approach these situations, because whatever the tool may be, whatever the advancements in the tool may be, however the powerfulness of the tool, we end of the day, it's humans using them. So if we understand that and remember that that's who is behind that message or that opinion, I think it's essential, because otherwise it's just going to be one giant mess of pointing fingers, attacking, a combative arena. So I think I think this is really, really good to hear. And I think, for me and everyone listening, I think it's just important to recognize and kind of look within ourselves to see, okay, where have we done this, where haven't we done this? So it's been nice.
I really I was going to say, and I really want to thank you for the platform you have and what you are doing with it, because you are bringing courageous conversations about thoughtful things, or thoughtful conversations to things that require courage and curiosity and interest to look at. And you're doing this, week after week with your podcast, and more things like this, I think really, really help. And I wanted to go back to something that you said about how, comedians can't say A, B, or C. One of the things that I think was really bracing about the comedy you did when you spoke about disability, you spoke about your own visual impairment, right? So it was you talking about your disability, not talking about other people's disability. So people saw somebody, and I hope it's okay to call it a disability. That's just the thing I
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
to use. But just,
absolutely.
the fact that you sort of stood there and you described what your daily experience is like with such humanity and humor, and also some like affection for yourself, and this thing of like not taking it all so seriously. And I think that leaves people like they were really laughing because you wanted them to laugh about that stuff. So they felt permitted to laugh. And plus, you're a funny guy. But I think what that does, I think, is that I think those people who left might have left thinking, I think I'm going to laugh more about my own stuff too, because why not? It's not that serious. Like, I think I'm going to work on being less closed in about who I am and be more authentically who I am. And you were so authentically on that stage being who you were with all of who you were, that becomes its own example, its own beautiful example of how to be authentic. And I think that's what people want, is to feel like they can be authentic. And here you are up on stage, laying it all out there. Is there
Thank you.
anything more freeing to witness, So,
Yeah.
and the fact that you're sort of taking that same sensibility into your podcast is like, what a cool evolution. Like, what a cool evolution to do. And I'm really so glad you're doing it. And I'm so thankful and happy to be part of it today.
That means a lot, Ronnie. Thank you for hearing it from
Mm,
you. Also, based on our last conversation, it really means a lot because I think what it gave me a lot of it was the last public show I did in 2020. That one you spoke about, the one you spoke about,
yeah. Yeah.
and it gave me a sense of release because I'm not a brand ambassador for any community, right? I'm the voice, and I represent what I've lived, what I am
Mhm,
not, and that's pretty much all I can do. And there's this need for um, flag bearers to take it up for the whole cause or for the whole thing. And I'm like, how dare I go and speak on behalf, not just of one or two other people with a disability, but a community? Because the
mhm,
only thing that's common between us is maybe lack of sight. That's so unfair for me to
mm,
mask all the other things that they have, which may be unique talents to them or experiences to them or relationships. And how can I go and just use one word, which is blind or visually impaired, and
mhm,
undermine everything else that those people are, just because this one
mm,
thing connects us? But
yeah.
when I do talk about certain things, like what might happen when I'm offered a wheelchair, when I mentioned the airline staff, I'm visually impaired, resonates with people who might have experienced that. So I can talk about,
Yeah.
the only thing I can talk about is my story and my
Mhm,
experiences, and that's what I tried
mhm,
doing, and it feels good. It feels
yeah.
like, as you said, I was heard for the life I've lived, and not um, celebrated for um, some thing that people perceived me as being, which is a leader to celebrate or a inspiration to this thing. I just wanted to stand up there and tell my story. And it's been 3 years, and a little more than 3 years now since I did that. And that's why I've taken a break from stand up, because that person has now become someone else, with my daughter being born, with
Mhm,
what I what I look at the world with, and how I look at myself. And I want that, because again, there's this pressure to deliver every 6 months a new special, a new joke, a new this thing. I'm like,
yeah.
I want
Mhm.
to live some life without the pressure of everything becoming a joke. So let me live, let me look back and talk about what that was like.
Yeah. Can I ask you,
Yes.
because you're so funny and you're a great comedian, um, how does that impact your parenting? Like, are you just ridiculous with your daughter?
Um, mm, You know, not yet. I
Okay.
kind of because she's so small and she's still like barely speaking.
Uh,
I don't. I've never been one of those performers like doing making funny noises, making this thing. I do sometimes. Yeah, I do enjoy just kind of entertaining her. But yeah, it's very different from spoken word. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting, right? Like sometimes I feel pressure. Like I'm like, am I being funny enough for her? And but I'm looking forward to growing up with
Oh,
her because it's going to be interesting to see what she puts out. And she's quite,
yeah.
got quite a nature of her own. She does these things where she instantly like copies you, and
Oh,
yeah, it's quite this thing, and I find that making me laugh, which is quite cool.
yeah. It's the biggest adventure you'll ever take is
Yeah.
being a parent.
And I didn't want that to be
Biggest.
limited by, oh, she did this. I'm going to make this into a nice bit. Yeah, let her do it. Let
Oh,
her,
yeah,
yeah, let me live through it. There's enough time to get back on stage. And thank you so much for those reassuring, encouraging words you said, because sometimes when you take a break for 3.5 years or 3 years or whatever it's been, 3.5 years, you feel like, oh my God, how can I going to get back? It's been 3.5, I'm missing out, I'm being left behind.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you're not, in reality, you're not being left behind. It's not a race. It's not an increment of, if you 1 + 1 = 2, or 10 years in comedy gets you this much. Maybe it is, but not. If that's the only thing driving you, then you're just going to be grasping at straws for material, and you're going to be
Yeah,
living for the joke as opposed to living to live.
yeah. It sounds like you're using your own gut as your North Star. You're letting it guide you to the next
Trying
thing. And
sometimes, and when you have a bad stomach, man, the Northern Star is sends you down the toilet.
right, you're like, oh, my gut's speaking. It's like, no, that's just gas.
That's
That's
just
just
gas.
gas.
Yeah, because clearly the gut sometimes can really send you down a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, that's not your gut. You just ate the wrong food
Yeah,
before bed.
don't trust that.
Oh man.
Ronnie, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's early in the morning. I really wish you the best of luck with everything going forward. And what do you have planned now? Because you are doing those stories about people whose lives taken a turn for the worse for something which is not in their control. So that's what you've been doing. But what's in store for you going forward?
Yeah, so left journalism at the end of 2021, and I had studied positive psychology, so I'm certified in applied positive psychology. So I'm doing groups now, like I'm doing group coaching about how to use the tenets of journalism to help tell a bigger, better, truer story about whatever is going on for you. So I'm working on that program. I'm also doing a lot of keynote speaking around listening and how listening, if you want your workplace to be better, um, all of your DEI efforts won't mean anything if they don't result in increased feelings of belonging, because that's really what matters. So I talk about listening, how listening is the bedrock that runs beneath every single every single behavior that we value in the workplace, like to be resilient, to pivot, to collaborate, etc. So I'm doing that. I'm working with an association who's it's an employers association. And I'm doing training for them for some of their clients. I'm also working with the city. I think I can't talk about it, but I'm going to be doing something
Right,
with
right.
the city of Philadelphia related to the country's 250th birthday, which is coming up in 3 years. So I'm going to be involved in a specific project related to that.
Lovely.
Um, and working with another woman who is, she has a company where she helps mostly businesses. How do they work through change in their companies, and how do they do it by acknowledging the emotional impact that change has on human beings anyway, and how well you acknowledge and deal with that can really impact whether or not that change is a success or if it falls flat on its face. So I'm kind of all over the place, but it's all sort of in the same ballpark, and
Nice.
it's fun. It's just fun.
That's
I
great to
love this
hear.
stuff. I love talking about this stuff, as you can tell.
Brilliant. No, I'm so excited for you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
excited to have you
Thank
back on the
you.
podcast in the near future. Maybe in a few months we can
Yeah.
catch up again. So I look forward to that, and look forward to all the work you're doing. And thank you so much for taking the time today.
You're welcome. It's really good to be here. Thanks, Sophie.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you liked what you heard, please do check out the other episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And I would much appreciate it if you could like the video, share it with people who you think might enjoy it. And of course, do subscribe to the channel because it will help me and the podcast grow and reach more people just like you. So thanks again. Appreciate it.